Okay, questions for the panel? Right here.
This one is for the gardener, and I was wondering if you ever tried sheet mulching with cardboard on perennial weeds and putting a mulch and then planting the next season.
I have done it, and we have done that. The problem is the quackgrass moves. It can move up to 35 feet in a season, and that just says, oh, look at this nice tunnel that you've given me, and it grows up. And Canadian thistle also will tunnel underneath it. It works well, like Ruth Stout pioneered the lasagna gardening method, and so it works well when you don't have those two primary perennial weeds. We need to get rid of those before we can start doing that.
Yes. Yeah, this is for Todd. Say, when you're cabbing later, do you have trouble with flies or anything?
No, not until not until later, like July or August. No, right away is no problem. May and June is no problem.
Oh, okay.
Question for Rick. Just wondering, when you have organic nitrogen, say you have 70 units of organic nitrogen, how do you know how much of that's actually going to be able to be used compared to an inorganic nitrogen? If you're just starting out looking at going into more of a holistic type of management?
Good question. No, when we find that organic nitrogen pool, we give you a portion of that based on your microbial activity and the CDN ratio. As that ratio goes above 21, we give you 0 of it. But if your microbial activity is decent, your CDN ratio is decent, or coming down, we give you more and more, but we'll never give you more than we measure. So the best you can get is all that organic nitrogen. That total nitrogen thing I was showing you, the best you can do is all that. Everything else is something less than that. So I don't care if you're just starting or you've been doing it for 40 years, the principles all apply because it's soil and it's alive. So that makes sense?
We have a question over here.
I got a question for Todd. When you, on the stuff that your hay ground that you graze, when you go back in and graze it, do you do anything afterwards for the manure, or do you just let Mother Nature take care of it, or do you drag it or anything?
Not when I feed just hay. No, Mother Nature takes care of it. I did feed sorghum one year, and there was a little too much of it, but I did drag it and I shouldn't have because it built up too much. So the rest I just left it over and it disappears in time. And I hated that in the spring.
I have a question for Annie. You said that you feed about 80 families. When you first went into gardening, how did you promote to get those people interested in get your product out?
Our farm has never paid for any advertising. We didn't have a website until just this past year. It just started by word of mouth. I'd been selling at the farmer's market and talked to people there and friends. You just keep your ear out because there's tons of people who love fresh produce, but they don't necessarily want to garden. And so when they say, oh, it's coming spring, like right now, people are having those conversations. And you can just say, have I got a deal for you? I will do all your gardening and I'll deliver it once a week. You'll get recipes, it'll be great. And so it's word of mouth. That's how our business grows. I started with 8 families our first year, and you never want to overrun your headlights. You never want to sign up 100 people and then disappoint 100. If you sign up 8 and everything goes wrong, then you've only disappointed 8. So we started small and grew from there. They told others who told others.
Question for Todd. At what stage of growth do you
go in to graze the cattle on your hay ground? And what stage do you bring them off of the hay ground at the latest?
Just whenever, like I said, I could have 9 pastures where I start first cutting. I'll go into there first. So it could be late September. I get, could be 6-7 inches of regrowth. And then I'll stay there. If I go through the rotation, then once I'm done, I will stay on there clear through the whole winter. And then into spring a little bit. I answered the other guy's question a little better. I'm constantly moving across the fields, so I don't build up too much manure in any one spot, so that way you don't have to harrow it.
Todd, is it fair to say that you're rotationally hayed?
Yeah.
Todd, do you rake that when you're cutting your hay? Do you rake it all, or just cut it?
I thought someone might ask that. Yeah, you can get a little manure in there, but in the future, I would like to skip a field if I get it to 14, so it has a little more chance to decay. But yeah, you can have a little bit of manure in there, but they still seem to clean up pretty good.
I have a question for Seth. One of the slides you had up there on a particular field that you were describing, you said for the next year you didn't know what you were going to plant in that field yet. Most would have a very specific crop rotation that they would follow. Why do you say you're not sure what you're going to plant, or what are your considerations moving into next year?
Well, I mean, considerations will be the history. Obviously, we had corn, and then warm season legume and alfalfa. So, I don't know. I'm kind of, now that I got this Haney data, I can kind of maybe make a better assessment on it and decide where I'm going to go. But it won't be corn. It could be possibly a cool season, more than likely. Probably a legume, some sort, or flax or something like that.
Okay. Other questions? Rhonda, you got one up front up there.
I have a question for Ray. I guess I'm wondering, I'm a sugar beet farmer, so no-till is not an option when you're digging beets. There's going to be disturbance. How much of the benefit to cover cropping and no-till in between other crops is lost when you go through and dig beets or something of that nature?
Good question. Yeah, you're going to set yourself back, but I think one of the things that's amazing about cutters and manure and what the microbes can do, they can start that healing process of building those aggregates. And of course, every time you mess with that soil ecosystem, you bring weed seeds to the top of the surface. And a lot of the research has shown that as soon as you disturb that soil, it happens within minutes and hours. You wake up those R strategist bacteria, and they'll start eating the organic matter. And so one of the things I tell some of the producers, if you're going to do, especially our sugar beet producers, if you're going to do disturbance, do it when it's colder. So those microbes they'll be moving slower, and they respond to temperature. But Dr. Mikowski's work shows that, these guys, within minutes and hours, you wake up that bacteria and they'll start eating the glues and the organic matter. So the best healers is a good cover crop mix. Go back right behind it, because there's a lot of guys that do potatoes. And until we learn how to get better equipment, we can go down that direction. And now I know in eastern Montana, is that correct, Jay, that we have some guys doing no-till sugar beets? Yeah, and there's some people working on that, on no-till. And we also have some people in Colorado working and trying to do no-till on furrow irrigation. And furrow irrigation does a lot of disturbance. So we're working towards that direction. We don't have all the answers, but I would say a great cover crop mix after you do that disturbance to do that. And we also have guys in the southeast they do peanuts. And peanuts require a lot of disturbance. And I tell them, if you're gonna do a field that's gonna do a lot of disturbance, I would try and keep that field in that area, rotate within that field, and don't move your disturbance to the other parts of the farm. So that's another way of doing that. But I think that would be a good thing to do.
A question for Rick. Would a Haney soil test be different in this fall compared to if we did it next spring?
Yes. Who said that? I can't tell who's. Okay. Would it be different in the spring than the fall? Is that the question?
Yeah, basically I'm asking, is there a better time of year that we should be doing this type of soil test to tell us the right story?
Okay, it depends on if you're looking to tell a story or if you're looking to save money on fertilizer. So, and I know this seems intuitive, but if you're going to put fertilizer out, to pull the sample before you do that, so that we can help you save money on a little NPK maybe. If you're just looking for what effect have I had in the last year or whatever, that you can sample in the fall or the spring or whatever you want to. But if you think about the fall, you've gone through the summer, things have been very, very active. We should see something happen by then. Coming out of the spring, you'll usually see things just getting revved up. So those numbers will be different. I had a guy call me one time and he said, I sampled in the spring and sent them to you and you gave me the results. I sampled in the fall and the numbers were different. He was mad. And I said, well, thank God they're different. He said, well, why do you say that? I said, because we're measuring a dynamic system. It should change. So we have to change the way we think about what we're looking at. But yeah, if you'll just sample the same time every year, something like that, then we can tell something.
Other questions? I've actually got a question for Dave. One of the things, and Dave's hosted some tours and some different things, he and his brother, his father, but one of the things I remember Dave saying a while back was a kind of a mindset change. You're running cattle in an area where there's a lot of cropland, and you had thought about that as a big disadvantage of trying to figure out how to run cattle in an environment that has a lot of cropland. But you changed that mindset here, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. Do you mind talking about just that shift in how you thought about that and how it's changed?
Yeah, I guess I was visiting with Henry Meyer, and I bought some heifers from him, and he said, well, I sure like to come up and see them and see how they're doing on the pasture and stuff. And I was kind of busy at the time, and so he came out, and where my farm sits, it's kind of right in the levelest area that's in our area. I mean, it's you can see my place from a couple miles away, and you get further west, and it starts getting into the breaks of the Missouri, and you move further east, and it's closer to Wing, and there's little higher hills and that kind of thing. And I was telling him, this is about all the cattle that I can have, because I only have 50 acres of actual pasture, because it's a hilltop and it's real rocky, and we never wanted to break it up because we had enough rocks in the rest of our land that we didn't want to fight into that too. So it's always been a farmstead, and he came out and we were driving in his pickup, and he says, boy, look at all this cropland and all these cattails and all this low area. You could have 700 head out here to winter. And by him saying that, it just flipped my mind from I'm in such a disadvantage because I don't have pasture to winter my cattle on, to I've got everything that I would possibly need to winter my cattle on, because this land is completely not used for 6 months out of the year. And that 6 months is when my cattle are at home. So it was kind of funny when he said that, because it was just like I was always thinking of myself as a disadvantage, and once he said that, it was just like I was thinking all wrong. It's changed my operation quite a bit. Now this year I haven't had as much opportunity to try to graze those cattails and that kind of thing either, but
it opens your eyes to make you understand that just because you think it's a disadvantage, looking at it another way, it's probably your true advantage.
All right, last chance.
This would be for Rick. Using anhydrous ammonia, I heard that for the biology in the soil, that anhydrous isn't good. Have you seen a lot of data or what it does to the soil?
I have, and classified. I had to pull that out of the NSA database. We hacked into their database and pulled that information out. I can give you some. Anhydrous ammonia is anhydrous means waterless. So it's a waterless ammonia in H3, so it's a waterless gas. So why are we putting a waterless gas in our soil? I mean, that's the first question that leaps to my mind, because I'm, again, so nimble over here. But it drives, it's waterless. So the first thing that has to happen is it has to acquire water to convert it from a gas to a solid. So it has to get that hydrogen off of something, and it rips that hydrogen out of the water molecule. So in World War II, this will be clear. World War II, when they needed to build landing strips, they didn't have pavement and all these things, and they needed to land planes on a hard surface, they used enormous amounts of anhydrous ammonia because it sucked the water out of the soil and made it like concrete. Now, very, very large portions, but still, that's the effect of it. But when it rips all those hydrogens off those waters, it also drives the pH up to 13. You know, not many things live at pH 13. I mean, so it's instant death for pretty much anything that gas hits. They'll come back. I'm not going to be a drama queen. I've been accused of being a drama queen by someone I know, I'm married to. A woman, I saw those looks. But yeah, it's pretty, they'll come back, microbes come back, but I don't like anhydrous because, well, I pulled a lot of it for years and years and years, but, you know, it's supposed to be 83% nitrogen, right? Well, that's great, and it is, but if whoever's telling you that you stick it all is selling it to you, probably. If you can smell it, you're losing it. And so how cheap is it really? Did I answer your question at all?
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Sure. You owe me a drink.
This question is for Rick. If you're doing sampling on a field, is there a number of samples you're supposed to take, so many acres or what?
Yes, good question. For a rule of thumb, if you've got a 100-acre field, let's say, well, I sure want you to take at least 10 to 15 samples on that 100 acres and put them together and take a representative sample, because our analysis can only be as good as your sample. I have guys in Texas, again, because some people think we're up to sharp with some of the other states, but they'll stick a sharpshooter in the ground and take a chunk up, put it in a plastic bag and give it to me and bring it in there, bam, there you go. I said, how many samples did you take? I said, well, that's it. Well, how many acres does that represent? About 1,000. Okay, you know, that's tricky. Now, if he'd have taken at least 20 samples on his 1,000 acres from places where he knew what the dirt was like, we could probably give him some answers. I'm not sure how good the answer is on a brick, you know, so, you know. And I hate to take soil samples. I'll send you a PDF file of how we do it. We use a cordless drill and a wood auger and a 5-gallon bucket. You know, it's really slick. It makes it easier. So, I don't know. Stop talking.
This is for Rick. What's your opinion about split applying nitrogen? We use, like, we put some down with our seed and then we use 28%. What's your opinion on that?
I have never seen any data in my life that showed that a pop-up fertilizer or putting fertilizer down to seed has any effect on yield. Has anybody else? Anybody? Have you seen any data that says that pop-up fertilizer helps your yield? Where? No, I'm not asking about, okay, let me rephrase. Have any of you farmers ever seen increased yield using a pop-up fertilizer? Yes or no?
I think I have, yeah.
You'd think you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I haven't seen that. Split out, I think it's fine. If you want to put fertilizer out with planter, I think that's fine. I think a split application is better than putting it all out at once. So yes, and no. I'm trying, you know, we have just got to be smarter about how we're doing it. It's another trip, it's, and probably one of the reasons farmers we used to put seed out and fertilizer out is it's one trip, right? You get seed planted, you get a little fertilizer out there. It makes sense to me. But, once you get going, I don't know, I'm running out. I don't even know who I am anymore.
This question is for Rick again. When you take soil samples, when you got a wide variety of soil, from gravel to nice black soil, what are you supposed to do there? Just take the good stuff to make yourself look good, or take, all the way across, or how should a guy be doing?
Quit farming the gravel.
It's all in the same field again.
Okay. Take some from each. Take some from each. We've done this because we've got some fields that have very different soil in it, and it's kind of fun to take from each one of them individually, take a bunch of samples from each one individually and send those in, and then take a composite across all of them and send those in. And we will learn something about that. And I will tell you this, if you guys want to do some soil analysis with us, don't take one sample or two samples. Take some samples that mean something to you. If you've got a good spot in your field, take a sample there. If you've got a crappy spot that you know, something you already know, use a comparison. Take a pasture sample next to a crop sample or something like that. Boy, we can learn a lot more if we have a little more diversity in our sampling and our soil types.
Yeah, I don't know whoever wants to answer the question, but if you use organic fertilizer instead of commercial fertilizer, or liquid fertilizer that's lower in salt, is any of them beneficial?
Guess that'd be me. When you say organic fertilizer, what do you mean? See, I made Josh turn around.
Oh, I'm injecting fertilizer through my irrigation pivot, and there's organic fertilizers out there. I haven't got into that, but I've used liquid fertilizer that's less in salt.
Right. The less salt you can get, I think, the better. I think that's just, I can't say you're killing everything with a high salt content fertilizers, but you're not helping anything. I guarantee you that. So the more pure that fertilizer is, the better it is. Yeah. But liquid, dry, anhydrous. I'm not your judge. What you can afford. Find the best fertilizer you can that you can afford. Don't, skimp on it or try to, and do a budget. When we plant cover crops, we have a budget. And fertilizer should be the same way. You should have a target in mind. Look at this, I got my name on my arm. You should have a target in mind and don't go over it. Figure out a way around it or something. But yeah, the higher quality stuff, liquid or dry, whatever's available, there's lots of reasons, but the higher purity is the better stuff.
Oh yeah, I've got a question probably for Ray. In regards to cover crops and micronutrients, it seems like there's a fair push for micronutrients and some of our crops have used up some of them. Is there any blends or things that a cover crop could do to bring back some of them, like zinc or boron, or what would be the best for that?
Good question. The thing is that I like these cover crops are heavily mycorrhizal. And mycorrhizal means there's a fungus that builds an association with the plant. We know that the mycorrhiza has ability to bring up zinc, iron, organic N. They have an ability to be able to excrete these powerful enzymes and bring it out of the mineral. So they have the ability. Microbes also have the ability to be able to extract, exude this phosphatase and these powerful enzymes. Cover crops also leak these citric acids that have the ability to bring out these minerals in the soil. So that's why I like for 6 or 7 or 5 or 6, depending on what we want to do in the design, do a very good job of being able to bring up some of these minerals. Another one is like, for example, buckwheat. They have an incredible amount of exudates. They're acidic. They have the ability to make some of these minerals soluble. So that's why I like these mixes. Now, to say that there's a whole book called The Rhizosphere by Dr. Robert Pinto. It's an expensive book. It's about $200. They have identified close to 120 to 160 metabolites that they've known that these plants excrete. And like what Rick was talking about, when you have these exudates and you have what the biology is doing, I don't worry about trace minerals anymore. See, I figured if you get the carbon cycle right, all these other stuff will come right. And besides, if you start looking about these real trace minerals, which was the ones like, Rick, the ones that are, I think people put out in real small amounts, like in boron, for example. You have to put it in such a small amount that, and it's hard to put it out. I've come to realize in my experience that if you bring the biology, it'll make all that, keep it in balance. So that's what I suggest. And just real quick, there was a gentleman that we talked about the tillage on the sugar beets. Do you remember Rick's data he was putting up there where he had a field that was tilled quite a bit extensively? Did you notice how the soil health score went up even in the till situation because he was putting covers? Remember that? You were using it on your data? So the covers are very, very powerful. Do the healing, but also make some of those nutrients available. The plant can do quite a bit of that.
Ray or Rick? Well, how do you feel about cation exchange capacity?
I don't worry about it anymore like I used to. See, the two sacred things they told us when we were learning soil science and agronomy was pH and CEC. I mean, those were the most important things you could ever know. In fact, I went to graduate school and I went through soil chemistry. It's the hardest class I took, and that's all I remember is the concentration and activity of the hydrogen ion. That's all. And here's what I've come to conclusion. If I get the biology right, get the carbon cycle right, I don't have to worry about CEC because it'll come along because the organic matter and the organo-mineral complexes that the microbes produce and make will help improve cation exchange capacity. They will do that. That's what I was telling you is that the biology will make the structure, build the aggregate, build the home, build the biotic cementing agents that are dipole positive, dipole negative, help hold on to those nutrients. It's the biology. That's what's so cool about, so I don't worry about CEC anymore. I don't even worry about pH unless it gets down below 5.5 unless it becomes critical. Because we've seen that when you have manures and microbes, the microbes can change that one way or the other. That's why I was talking about that niche construction. It is biology can control their environment. They can move that. So I don't worry about pH anymore unless you have really high numbers above 7, 7.2, 7.5, 7.8, maybe a little higher, right, Rick? And then once I worry in North Carolina, 5.5. And the reason for the 5.5, I get concerned about 5.5 and below is because rhizobial bacteria don't do well under 5.5. But I've seen farmers farm 5.4. See, you can take a soil sample from here and be maybe 6 inches apart. Within an aggregate, you could be a whole pH unit different. You see what I'm saying? So I don't get concerned about it as I used to anymore. You want to add any other to that?
Okay, time for one last question if we have one.
question for Annie. I was wondering about the pig breeds you've used. Can you talk about what you've seen?
The pig breeds we've used? We get our pigs from a conventional producer. They don't see soil until they step off the trailer at our place. And so the first 2 weeks, John refers to it as detox. When they come, they smell really bad. They smell like pigs. And their poop is gray and lifeless. And so we get them onto the soil, and they just stand there and look around like, I don't know what this is. And so they're all breeds. The gilt that we kept and bred, she was a Duroc Old Spot cross and did really well for us. And we bred her back to an Old Spot, actually, her half-brother. And so her piglets are our first generation chemical-free pigs. So they're 3/4 Old Spot, 1/4 Duroc. And so we're going to breed them again and see what we can do. But as a general rule, pigs are very adaptable. It doesn't really matter. You can use a Chester White, you can use a Yorkshire. They do just as well. We prefer dark-skinned breeds because they don't sunburn as much in the summertime. So if I can get Hamps and Old Spots and Durocs, that's what I prefer. Feeder pigs are hard to find. I have to order mine before they're even born. So I tell him in October what I want for delivery in May. Good luck finding feeder pigs in the spring. If you want to find them and overwinter them, that's an easy option. They're easier to find in the fall. But make friends with a producer and get some feeder pigs. Is the easiest way to start.
Okay, with that, I just want to, there seems to be a couple of common themes that I just want to throw out there and give you guys some things to think about. You know, when Ray started out this morning, he did highlight, and this brought to light 3 of those things, the 3 rules of ecology. And you guys can help me with this, but the first one was everything is connected to everything else. The second one was that everything must go somewhere. And the third one, there are no free lunches. But a lot of times when you think of when that statement gets made, there's a negative connotation. Well, you have to pay for it, or you have to do it, or you have to give something up for it. But I like to flip that around and think about living organisms. Not only do all living organisms eat, but all living organisms have the ability to feed. Okay? We have that ability as well. And if we play both roles through our management, it allows all of the other organisms to play both roles. And when everything is able to play both the eating and the feeding role, then the circle keeps going round and round and around. Now, with all of this that was described, we highlighted different operations, we heard different testing methods, we heard big picture scope on this whole process. And there was a quote, and I just want to re-emphasize it, that by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and this was in the first presentation this morning. It said, as to methods, there may be 1,000,000 and then some, but principles are few. But a man or a woman who grasps principles can successfully select their own methods. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not going to be a prescription or a recipe specific to hayland or rangeland or cropland or your garden. But there's a wonderful opportunity and complete flexibility that if you understand these basic foundational soil health principles, you get to choose. And finding your path, I think, was completely appropriate for this particular conference because of that, because it is about those principles and helping people find their path, and what I truly believe is finding that regenerative type of path to take us beyond just soil quality. Because soil quality, you can still have quality and it can still not be living. But if you talk about it from the context that we can go towards soil health, that would be a path, I think, worth investigating. Let's give our panel a round of applause.